Welcome back to Today in Atlanta Sports. It is February 24th, and the Hawks are back in action to start their second half of the season. I don't think there's any way other to put it. A very disappointing first half by the Hawks. I thought when you looked at the Hawks win total, I think it was 41 and a half or something. I was like, oh, lock, over. No way. And it still could go over. I mean, I think they need 14 wins out of their last 24 games. So they go 14-8. They can still hit that over. But that it might actually been 43 and a half though. I'm kind of blanking. It was one of those numbers that they could either way. They could get 16 wins. They could go 16-6. But that's going to be if they want to get a top six in the seed in the East, which is staying out of the play-in tournament. That's what they're going to have to go. At least 14-8, but probably more like 16-6. I mean, you look at a team like Boston right now. I think they're sitting in the seventh spot, or did they get
Six.
up to six? So that's who you're kind of competing with. They're red hot. They're the hottest team in the NBA, winners of 9 of their last 10. They play Brooklyn tonight, so that should be a fun matchup on TNT. Brooklyn right now, I think, is sitting 8 seed, 7 seed. I'm not looking at the thing right now. I'm just
They're 8th.
Purely off record. Yeah, so Brooklyn, but then they obviously get Ben Simmons back. I mean, you look at the teams in front of them. I wrote about it, once we ended the first half of the season before the All-Star break. It's going to be really hard to get to that top seed. I mean, you're 6th seed. The teams you can catch up to, obviously Charlotte, you're probably going to catch up to. But after that, there's no guarantees. I mean, Brooklyn's going to play better basketball. Boston's playing some of the best basketball in the league. Philadelphia, Cleveland, all those teams. So it's going to be hard for the Hawks to make up ground. They kind of just have to put their head down and go 16-6, 17-5, something, or 16-8, 17-5, something like that to end this half if they want to get a top 6 seed.
Yeah, the Hawks are 4-point underdogs tonight. In Chicago, without John Collins. The Bulls are without Lonzo Ball and Caruso. If they win tonight, they'll hold sole possession of the 9th seed. And as the standings are right now, without the games going on tonight, the Hawks are 5 games out of that 6th seed, which the Celtics do hold. And just like you said, it's gonna be a tough road. It's an uphill battle. I wouldn't be shocked if we're in the play-in tournament, and then at that point, anything can happen. It's kind of like a Game 7. If you get to a Game 7, anything can kind of happen. So, I mean, the Hawks need to buckle in. I mean, it's time to start playing defense. Trae Young needs to start dropping 40, 50 a game. I mean, it's go time.
At the very least, they got to get to that 7-8 seed. If they're in the 9-10 seed, I mean, you got to win 2 games in a row or you're out.
Yeah.
So you at least got to get to that 7-8 seed and give yourself a little bit of a cushion. Only have to win 1 out of 2 games. But if you're in that 9-10 seed, but even getting up there, I mean, I obviously think the Hawks can pass the Hornets. The Hornets have lost 9 of their last 10. They could pass them tonight. They're right now tied in the standings. But who else are they going to catch up to after that? I mean, Brooklyn is, they're 2.5 games back of them. That's doable. But you look at Ben Simmons coming back, Kevin Durant coming back from injury. That's going to be really hard to catch up to them. I mean, Brooklyn, unless they take a lot of time to gel, which is possible, but it's going to be hard to catch up to them. And then the 2 teams in front of them, Boston and Toronto, are the hottest teams in basketball right now. Winners of 8 and 10, winners of 9 and 10. And then when you get past that, it's good luck. You're not catching any of those guys. The Hawks are 7 games back of the Cavs. Unless the Cavs have an epic collapse, which some of you might be thinking, oh, they could do that. They haven't been good in a while. No, if you watch this Cavs team, that's a team that's here to stay. That's a playoff team. They'd have to have an epic collapse. The 76ers just got better with James Harden. I expect them to make a run at the 1 seed. And, Chicago, Milwaukee, Miami, you just dug yourself too deep of a hole. So, unfortunately, the Hawks are in a bad position. I want to say their goal is to get a top 6 seed, but I think more realistically, you're just trying to get a 7-8 seed and try to stay out of that, 1-game elimination and the 9-10 matchup.
Yeah, it's not only Ben Simmons and KD returning. The New York, mayor or governor is instituting, effectively removing the vaccine mandate. So basically, the Nets are getting their 3 best players back. Ben Simmons is a new player, but Kyrie's coming back as well and will be available for every single game. So even though the Hawks are only 2.5 games behind the Nets as it stands right now, that's going to grow. It's going to grow, and it's going to be harder to chase him down. The one thing I will say is I don't know when KD's supposed to come back, but Ben Simmons has at least been, pretty vocal about how he's pretty much like scared to play. They've been talking about it and how they're targeting maybe like 2 weeks from now for him to play, which is ridiculous. I mean, I don't care about game shape or whatever. You're only going to get in game shape if you go play. Go play. There shouldn't be a minutes restriction. I think Ben Simmons is just scared. I wouldn't even be shocked if he sat out that Philly game. That's it.
Scared.
He does not want to play immediately. That's not a franchise decision. That's a personal decision.
I don't think he's scared though. I'm sure he has his reasons. It's not because he's scared. I just don't agree with that. I think Ben Simmons is going to be great. I think that Brooklyn team is going to be nasty. The only hope of catching up with Brooklyn is if they have some gelling issues, which we've seen happen a lot. I mean, you look at the great Miami Heat teams when they first came together. They were like 12-12, 18-18 over their first 36 games before they really took off. So something like that could happen. I'm going to ask you a question. Let's say we'll start with top 6 and then we'll do top 8. What do the Hawks have to go record-wise over the last 24 games to end up in a top 6 seed?
I think probably the floor is win 16 games, and then, that's not even going to get you there. You got to win 18 at least.
Yeah, I was going to say 19-5, which is pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. I would be shocked.
And that could be overselling. There is a chance Boston and Toronto cool down. I don't think those guys are like world beaters, but Boston's playing the best basketball in the league right now. Ever since Marcus Smart's been back, their defense.
Yeah, I think it's more likely Toronto cools off than Boston, in my opinion. Just because
then you still need someone else to cool off. You still need, the Bucks, Cleveland, one of those guys is going to have to just blow up. I don't see
it being the Bucks. The Bucks are kind of in that LeBron space when he was kind of in Cleveland. It's like Giannis is just coasting right now. He's just just get us to the playoffs.
It's going to take 19-5. It's going to take 19-5 to catch, I would say, probably Boston and Toronto, and it still might not get there because guess what? It wouldn't be surprised me if Brooklyn went something like 17-6 or whatever they have to go. So I think it's going to be damn near impossible to get a top 6 seed. Now let's do top 8 because that gets you in that first play-in game. Right now, I think that's top 8, and it sucks to say because then you realize how much trouble the Hawks really are in. I think 15 or 16 wins to get top 8 because you're going to have to catch up to Toronto most likely. I think 15, 16 wins, and which would be 15-9, 16-8, something like that over your last 24. That's doable, but once again, we're playing under 500 basketball 58 games through the season. That's going to be hard as hell to do. We did it last year. We went on a run towards the end of the season. We got to hope that that's what happens. No John Collins tonight. So.
Yeah. And it's not like, if we had John Collins, we were fully healthy. Say what you will about John Collins and the type of player you want him to be or that he isn't. He makes this team immensely better on offense and defense. In transition too, he's invaluable to this team. So his absence is a bigger deal than maybe some people realize. Hopefully it's not that long. I saw his status was doubtful. So, that's closer than, usually if it's out, you're like, oh, well, we don't know when he's coming back. Doubtful. He's like on the cusp of returning. So that's positive. But if he misses four games or something like that, that's not good for the Hawks. The more I talk about it, the more pessimistic I get, I think.
Yeah. Let's just be honest. It's scary hours. This is way worse of a situation than we ever thought to be. And honestly, the East is just what the West was last year. It's the best. It's so much better than the West. It's not even funny. I don't think. Even the top teams at the West, the Suns and the Warriors, don't really impress me. Like if the Hawks played them in a 7-game series, do I think they'd win? No, but I wouldn't be like, I wouldn't be scared. I would think they'd have a fighting chance. The East is, and I think about that the same way at a lot of teams in the East. But I mean, the Bucks are probably a better team than anyone out west. Brooklyn fully healthy. Who knows how good Philadelphia is going to gel? And then you got teams like Miami, Chicago, Cleveland that are all just really, really, really solid teams. So, it's scary hours. I mean, the Hawks dug themselves in a huge hole, and they're going to have to turn it on and play the best basketball in the association probably the rest of the way if they want to get a top 6 seed. And they're going to have to play fantastic basketball even to get a top 8 seed. So bad situation that they're in, but you got to make the most of it.
Yeah, it should be exciting to see the rest of the way how it goes. I'm curious to see. We're past the point of turning it on. It's got to be there or it's not, and it starts tonight. You got to win tonight. I mean,
hopefully
every game is a must-win at this point.
Yeah, hopefully you catch a Bulls team sleeping on the road. It's not going to be easy. But our next topic is going to be a big one leading up to this whole draft process, and it's Mel Kiper. And Mel Kiper's been in this game forever. A lot of people have kind of lost. I don't know how much everyone respects Mel Kiper, but he definitely said the Falcons are a team to watch when it comes to quarterbacks and play at 8. And this quarterback class, we've kind of already talked about it at times. We definitely talked about it on the site. It's a very weird one because there's no guys that stand out. I mean, you see mock drafts of Kenny Pickett going 6. You see mock drafts of Kenny Pickett going 45. And that's pretty much every quarterback in this draft. If you fall in love with a quarterback, I could see, a lot of these guys going in the top 10, and I could see no quarterbacks going in the top 32. So it's a wild draft class. What do you think about Kyper saying that?
I am of the opinion that reaching for any player other than quarterback is a bad idea because of positional value. Quarterback is the most important position in all of sports, all of team sports. And so I think that if the GM truly falls in love with the quarterback, say it's Malik Willis in Atlanta's case, or Kenny Pickett, or Ritter, and they have them, 15 to 20 on their big board, and they reach for him at 8, that's not going to, knock me off my rocker. I'm not totally against that idea of reaching for a quarterback like that. What I will say is, though, in my estimation and what I've watched is none of these quarterbacks are even top 20 prospects, probably not even top 25 prospects. Maybe Malik Willis. Malik Willis is the one that I think could be in play, just purely based on his physical abilities. His ceiling is incredibly high because of all this, and he fits the mold that Arthur Smith kind of wants. He's much more mobile than Matt Ryan. You can get him on the edges of off play action. So there's a lot to like about a guy like Malik Willis. But I don't think the Falcons are really in a position to do anything other than take the best player on the board. And that's just how I feel. I don't think that Matt Ryan is going to fall off a cliff, even if he is declining in play. I expect them to restructure his contract in the coming weeks. And he's got a $45 million cap hit, and that'll knock it down to like 30 something. And it'll give Falcons some wiggle room. But what that'll also do is make moving off of him next year even more difficult. So if you restructure Matt's contract this year, it makes his dead cap next year. I think it rises from 15 to 20 something million. And so at that point, you're kind of, either biting the bullet of all that huge dead cap, or again, you're stuck with Matt Ryan. And next year's quarterback class is much better than this quarterback class. So I'm kind of lost on the whole situation. I wouldn't be shocked if they took a quarterback, but I don't expect them to take a quarterback in the first round, at least.
Yeah, a couple things I want to say. One, I completely agree with your first point, where if you got your guy, you go get him. I was saying that last year about Mac Jones. Obviously, I was a huge Mac Jones guy, and I was saying take him at 4. People laughed at me because they're like, "Oh, I don't even know if Mac Jones is a first-round quarterback, or we could trade back." And I'm like, no, when you have your quarterback guy, you don't mess around with that.
You don't risk it.
Another team jumping in front of you to take him. You take him right there. So obviously, Mac Jones didn't turn out to be the Falcons guy, but he was my guy when I was looking at things. So I was like, take him at 4, do it. And I think it would have been a pretty good pick. I think personally the Falcons should have started the moving off of Matt Ryan process by trading him last year. But because they didn't do it, it makes it super, super, super hard for them to do it now. I mean, especially if they restructure, it's almost like if they restructure Matt Ryan's contract before the draft, like we all expect them to, it almost seems like there's no way they could draft a quarterback. It would be like he's not going to play for 2 years. Now, that's not, we see teams do that all the time. Look at your Packers and Jordan Love, look at Aaron Rodgers before that. But it's still,
Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah,
There's
Mahomes.
Plenty of examples.
Yeah, there's examples, but it's like it seems unlikely, I guess, is what I'm saying, and especially with these quarterback prospects in particular. I mean, you mentioned Malik Willis. Obviously, Kenny Pickett's a guy that's been talked about, but after that, I mean, who are you talking about? Sam Howell? Like, are those like the 3 guys people are most projected in the first round? Who else?
Desmond Ridder. He sneaks into the first round sometimes, but he's mostly a second round guy. For me, the top 3 are in order: Malik Willis, Kenny Pickett, and then Ridder. Matt Corral maybe, but Corral's a loose cannon. I don't like Corral at all. It's just a shitty quarter. I mean, it's a shitty class, and there's nothing to it other than that. They passed on Justin Fields, Mac Jones last year.
I don't
to take a guy like that. I don't know.
I don't think passing on Justin Fields, like, I think the book's still out on him. He could be decent, but he's done nothing. I mean, he could easily be a bust. Obviously,
well, they just fired Matt Nagy because he's incompetent. I mean, he was set up to fail. I mean, that guy's a loser.
And I'm not saying that Fields can't be good. I mean, it's only a half season we got to see him, and with a bad offensive coordinator, not great weapons, there was nothing really there for him to succeed with. But yeah, I mean, last year seemed like if you're going to get this is what pisses me off about the whole Matt Ryan situation. It's like I don't think Matt Ryan's a bad quarterback, but I just feel like the Falcons delayed the inevitable rebuild. Like, I wish the new regime had just come in and been like, fuck it. Like, let's blow this up. Let's rebuild. Let's build the team like we want to. Now it seems like they have this half-ass, like, we have to go for it, but we're not really good enough to go for it. But because we committed last year to go for it, we can't do a rebuild now because then we're going to suck for 2 or 3 more years and we're going to get fired. Like, that doesn't it kind of have that feeling? It's like they should have blown it up and built it from the ground up. And I think part of this goes, and I think we've talked about it a million times, goes back to Arthur Blank. Like, Arthur Blank hired guys that wanted to come in and win now. He should have just hired people that wanted to blow it up. Like, this whole desire to hang on to Super Bowl 51, which, guys, it was fucking 5 years ago. Like, we're not that team anymore. We're not even close to it. Like, we're one of the worst teams in the NFL, one of the worst rosters in the NFL. It's been that way for 2 years. And it's mind-boggling to me that we haven't just blown it up. And it sucks because this thing just keeps getting drawn out further and further. Like, even if the Falcons, everything goes right next year, we draft well, Arthur Smith's offense comes together more in his second year. Matt Ryan gets better than he was last year, doesn't decline at all. We're a borderline playoff team. It's just such a ridiculous, the way we've gone about this. And I just see nothing in the Falcons' future other than a rebuild. And I've just almost given up. I hate to say
it. It's like the organization is fighting with one hand, which would be competing, and then the other hand is working behind the scenes trying to rebuild and build a culture. It's direct all of your attention to one or the other. The message is unclear to me. The only reason I could come up with is Smith and Fontenot are trying to instill this culture of it doesn't matter what we are. We're going to go out there and compete, and you love that. But at the same time, you're doing a disservice to your future in terms of, whether it be draft picks or, consistently restructuring contracts. I mean, what happens if we let Grady Jarrett play this year and then he just leaves us in free agency next offseason? We'll look like a bunch of idiots. I mean, it seems like there's no foresight right now in the front office.
That's why I think this offseason, as pivotal as last one was with all the regime changes and a possible quarterback change, I think this one's almost even more pivotal. I mean, what do you do with Deion Jones? Are we sticking with Matt Ryan? Are we at least getting, are we at least drafting a quarterback somewhere in this class to start grooming behind him? Or is Grady Jarrett? I mean, are we extending him? Are we sending him off for a first round pick? Calvin Ridley situation. Obviously, we've talked about that a million times. There's just so many parts, and that it's like, the Falcons are just such a mess, right? It's just it's unbelievable how messy this whole situation has gotten in a matter of a few years, and it just never had to get that way. It just never had to get that way. You hand out, and this is why the NFL is so great, and why the parity is so unbelievable, and why when you look at organizations that are able to stick together past, for 10 years of continued success and stuff like that, you have to give them credit, because you hand out 2-3 bad contracts, even to great players like Julio Jones, Devontae Freeman, guys who earn that money. Like, they were going to get money from someone, but you hand out those, big contracts, and they don't, pay off. And then you hand out you try to correct it by going and get Jamon Brown and fucking James Carpenter to revamp your offensive line. Just hand out a few bad contracts, and now you're in the biggest pickle of, of the Matt Ryan era. So, I mean, we're talking 15 years now. I mean, this is the most helpless I've felt. And it's not really because of Matt Ryan. It's just like all the moves leading up to this season have just been like, what the hell?
Yeah, it's difficult to really grasp what the organization is doing at this point. I'm eager to see the direction they go with the 8th pick. They're gonna restructure Matt Ryan. They have to, which, like I said earlier, it makes it moving off of him next year harder. And then at that point, what are you going to do? I mean, draft a quarterback next year? I mean, it's time.
The class is great next year. That's why I'm still of the proponent. And I don't know if I've said it on, one of these videos or in articles or whatever, but I'm still not against just like riding your losses, cut your losses. We should have done this. Let's eat some dead cap. Let's tank to hell. Give me like Bryce Young next year. Get me a real, top-notch quarterback. I mean, there's like 3 or 4 guys that will probably go in the top 12 picks next year. Give me one of those guys, and let's ride. It's fine. Like, let's eat the rebuild, because right now it just seems like, we could be 6 years away from like competing, and that's if everything goes right. Like, if we do everything right, we're 6 years away, and that's why I feel just hopeless. But life of a Falcons fan, I guess. I mean, the thing about it is, like, this is how the Falcons organization has been basically since their existence. They've just been awful. But like, me and my generation of Falcons fans have actually been blessed with some pretty good football. I mean, Matt Ryan, Michael Vick, like, those aren't the dark ages. Like, we've had, 4 NFC championship appearances, a Super Bowl appearance. I mean, if you go back to 98, you can even add 2 Super Bowl appearances. So the last 25 years of Falcons football hasn't been terrible. But now I feel about how all those guys did. My dad always says, like, when I'm bitching about the Falcons, like, oh, you have no idea. I've been dealing with this shit for 60 years. Like, now I know what he's really been dealing with. And this is work. This is miserable. Like, this is hell. Like, trying to cheer for a team like this. I mean, it's hard to even cheer. I went to most of the games, but it's depressing.
Yeah, it's hard to cheer for a team that doesn't even look like they want to fucking be out there. I went to a couple games. I went to one with you. And it's depressing. I mean, the Falcons, first of all, the stadiums are half filled, or Mercedes-Benz is half filled. And then it's disproportionately represented by the opponent's team. I mean, I had one of my friends went to the Patriots game on that Thursday night. And he said it was ridiculous. We went to the Bucks game, and that was ridiculous. And these were all games where the Falcons were still in the playoff hunt.
Shit, bro. Okay, the Bucks had Tom Brady, were like Super Bowl aspirations. The Patriots were pretty good, and they are like a huge fan base, and they have a ton of Boston transplants in Atlanta. Those games don't surprise me that there's a lot of opponents fans. Bro, we were outnumbered by like Panthers fans. The Panthers game, and like, there's more Panthers fans than Falcons fans, and I'm just like, bro, like, this is literal hell. Like, I'm in hell.
Yeah, I don't know. I would be remiss if I had to choose between the Panthers and the Falcons in terms of fan bases. I'd probably go with the Falcons. I mean, the Panthers are pretty shit. They don't. Matt Rule looks like a bum. He looks like he belongs in college football. So at least the Falcons aren't the worst in the division.
that hire always confused the hell out of me. I understand trying to bring college coaches to the NFL, but Matt Rule had like one successful season at Baylor, and they handed him like $60 million to be their head coach. I was like, Jesus, like y'all really think this guy's the answer? Like, it wasn't like you were handing Lincoln Riley, like that guy's had like 15 years of success. Like I would get that, like handing that guy a huge contract to come try to be your offensive mastermind. But Matt Rule, I was like, what, really? All right. But I mean, who knows? But that about wraps it up for this episode. We will be back with you tomorrow, hopefully with some good news about the Hawks, and we'll probably bitch about the Falcons again.